this gentleman in the bail bonds industry is going to have some gangster come after me and have my head or fingers chopped off. You know, sometimes when I tell these stories, I have to omit certain details to protect the guilty and the innocent. And this is one of those stories. I was working for a roofing company at the time, and the boss man I was working with, he and I were actually pretty close at the time. And he was giving me a ton of leads. And so I basically became what we call in the industry a lead baby. So he would feed me the leads, and then he'd notice that when he would feed me the leads, I would run them and do a really good job with them. I would turn a lead into 3 or 4 jobs because I'd always get referrals. So I learned how to convert referrals. So he was giving me all the really big jobs. So he called me and he said, "Hey, I've got a job for you, but this is the biggest one I've ever given you. And the biggest lead I've ever given really anybody." And I was like, wow, this is pretty exciting. And he said, it's in Winder, Georgia. And I kind of thought for a second, I thought, Winder doesn't have very big houses typically, not compared to some of the projects that we do here in the metro Atlanta area. And so I thought, okay. He's like, it's a gentleman, it's a big estate. He's got a bunch of different roofs on the property. I just want you to go out there and see what you can do with it. And so I said, all right, man, that's fine, that's no problem. So I go out there, and I've never been to a place that was double gated. So there's basically this road, and you pull in, and there's this huge wall in this gate. And so I go in, I'm trying to pull into the driveway, trying to get in, and you can't see the house. I mean, the house is way back in the woods. So I, push the little button, push the code in, whatever. Gate opens. Drive up about a quarter of a mile. Next gate. Get to the next gate. Type in the code. Doesn't work. So I'm calling the homeowner. I said, hey, will you help me kind of open this? He said, yeah. He opens it. So I drive through. And then as I drive through, it's like a movie. It's like the woods just kind of stop and there's this field. And then there is an absolute mansion up on this hill. There's like a huge 8-car garage down to the left of the mansion. There's a guest house. There's a pool house. I mean, it's gigantic. It's beautiful. So I pull in, and I'm a little bit nervous. And again, I'm young at the time. I'm like probably 19 or 20. I can't even buy beer legally yet. So I'm young, and I'm trying to put on a good first impression. And so I go to the front door and knock, and nobody comes to the front door, and go to the door and knock, and nobody comes to the front door. And then I hear one of the garage door open. And so I walk around, and there's a gentleman sitting there with his wife and an elderly couple. And they're sitting there smoking Marlboro Reds, sitting in chairs that were probably made in the 60s, old lawn chairs, with a garage full of, Porsches. He had some kind of really old Lambo. I'm not a car guy, but some kind of really old Lambo thing, or a Countach or something. I don't know. Some kind of expensive old sports car. He had a G-Wagon in there, and this is just the first garage. And the way the gentleman's dressed and he's carrying himself, I'm assuming that he works on this estate. And so I took my hand, I said, hey, good to meet you, my name's Steve. And he says, well, hey, my name is, and we'll just call him Bob for the sake of the story. He said, hey, my name's Bob. And that's the same name of the homeowner that I'm here to meet. And I said, well, okay, fantastic. I said, Mr. Bob, well, how long have you guys been here? He said, oh, we've been here for a few years. We really like the place. I said, well, that's good. That's good. Well, how can I help? And so we kind of get built up, start talking and build a little relationship. And turns out Bob owns a ton of bail bond companies here in Gwinnett. And this gentleman, I don't know really anything about gangsters or drug dealers or mafia ties or any of that stuff. But apparently Bob did, because he was tied in with all the big wigs that needed assistance posting bail, or however that process works. And so he was heavily compensated for his services, if it were. And so we get to talking, and so we go inside the house. And I've walked into the house and I'm immediately shocked. I mean, the house is drop dead gorgeous, beautiful. There's these beautiful, like, 18th century murals on the wall, just hand painted. And I don't mean on one wall, I mean throughout the house, on the ceiling. There's a recreation of one of Michelangelo's paintings. I think that one of the ones that he did I think that at the Vatican or something like that. I might be mixing up my history there, but it's, I mean, beautiful, beautiful custom work. And he got talking, and I said, was commenting on the beauty of just it's unbelievable. And he kind of got choked up a little bit, and he said, yeah, he said that was my daughter that came in and painted all this stuff. And he said, you know, she's passed on. And we kind of had a very serious moment. It was very sad because his daughter had passed on. She was involved in a car accident, and she loved to paint. And so she painted this house with all this custom work, and now she's passed. And he said, yeah, he said, I've kept the paint here for all these years because I can't bring myself to paint over it. And he kind of got a little bit teary-eyed. And again, he's an older guy, and I kind of understood it and empathized with him. So things kind of carry on. We proceed, look at the roof. Roof's toasted, needs to be replaced. Good insurance company. Have the claim goes through, roof gets approved, put the roof on, and now I'm getting ready to do my final inspection. So again, a few months have passed, and I've kind of built a relationship with Bob, and we've kind of become friends. And so I kind of just walk through the house as I please in some ways. I mean, I knew he was outside. I said, hey, Bob, I'm going to go upstairs and get in the attic. And the thing was, the way I was getting onto the roof was there was attic access that went out onto this large flat spot of the roof that you kind of look out. And so I went out there to look out to kind of, get some more photos and whatnot. When I got those photos, it was dark. And so it was getting dark at least. And so by the time I get the photos, get to go back in, it's pretty much dark. So when I'm walking back through the attic to get to the ladder that's in the attic, my foot rolls off of one of the rafters. And where does my foot roll to? It rolls onto the sheetrock. So immediately I go from standing to riding the horse, as we say, where I've got both feet down, dangling. I've got a rafter, basically I'm sitting on a rafter now. Basically started singing tenor for a few weeks after that. It was not a pleasant experience, but neither here nor there. And so I was like freaking out, thinking, man, there's insulation just shot through the hole in the sheetrock. And then it hit me. This might have been one of the rooms where his daughter had hand painted that mural on the ceiling. And, I don't really fear much. I mean, I always joke with people and say, when you work on roofs, you become right with God because you realize you're a little bit closer to death than the average person is, right? I was scared for my life that this gentleman in the bail bonds industry is going to have some gangster come after me and have my head or fingers chopped off because I have just damaged the only remaining piece of work that his daughter had done, and I had damaged that, and that was basically completely irreplaceable. Because the world I live in, everything's got a price. I can fix anything with money. If something gets broke, I can fix it. But this is something generally unfixable. He hollers, Steve, you all right? You all right? You all right? I said, yeah, Bob, I'm fine. Whole time I'm thinking of all the ways I'm going to go to hell in a handbasket for having put my foot through this sheetrock. So I get down the ladder. And he and I both meet right at the door that we're about to walk into to see, because we didn't know exactly where the sheetrock had been damaged. We walk into the first room, no damage. Now this room had been painted by his daughter. Walk into the next room, insulation everywhere, sheetrock everywhere. But there was no painting from his daughter. His daughter didn't paint that room because she hadn't gotten to that one yet. So out of this house that was, I don't know, 11 to 12,000 square foot, this was one of the only rooms that she had not yet painted. So he walked in there and he hugged me. He said, man, I'm glad you didn't damage the anything that my daughter would paint. He said, because I don't know how I'd be able to live with myself. I said, well, Bob, tell you the truth, I was worried that you might have somebody come chop my head off. He said, you know what? I'm not above that. And then he just moved on. And I thought, okay, well, it all worked out then. But the one thing I tell you about Bob that I could tell he was a wealthy man, because he didn't really sweat it. He basically just hollered at his wife and said, hey, Steve said he's going to pay for us to have this part of the room repainted. And he's going to paint the walls too for free just because we're good sports about it. Isn't that right? And I said, yes, sir, Bob, that's the case. So we got all that fixed up. He was a happy customer. He actually referred me to some of his clients as well. And it all worked out. But I have to say, if you're ever in an attic and you're walking on those rafters and you're in a house where the homeowner's probably got mob ties, be sure you got a light so your feet are not going through the sheetrock, because if they do, you might find yourself in a shallow grave. But you never know, because the homeowner might not be above that. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one.